G'day YouTube. Warbles on a lot here with a bit of a whimsical story concerning motorcycle maintenance and repair. If you have seen the previous video, electric motorcycling into the Trumpocalypse, you may have noticed that the chain was making a bit of a rattle. Now, I had been aware that I needed to tension the chain. I had been aware that I needed to clean and lubricate the chain, and it has been cleaned and lubricated, but it's still just on the limits of where it needs to be retensioned. Supposed to have 15 to 25 millimeters of slop in it, and I'd say it's got about 22 and a half or 23. Okay, so I have a look in the book and it says I need to have a tension wrench and put 71 foot-pounds of torque back onto that nut when I go to put it back together, after I loosen that nut and loosen that lock nut, and then use this bolt head to shift the back axle back with its little telltale mark against the calibrations to lengthen the chain and take the slop out of it. Okay, well, I inherited a tension wrench. Because nothing in my empire of tie wire required a tension wrench, I passed it on to my son because he works in the automotive industry. He needs a tension wrench. Therefore, I went and I bought myself the only tension wrench in the shop. It's a pretty bloody good one. Vastly better than the one I handed on to my son, thinking I was being a really good bloke. As well as instructions, conversion tables, 4 pages thereof. The bloody thing actually has a certificate of calibration telling me the test load was 42 foot-pounds. Minimum they put up with was 40.3. Maximum was 43.7, and the actual reading was 42.2. And the name of the bloke who tested it. Golly gosh. I got myself a precision doohickey. It's even got, can we see that one? It's got a serial number etched onto it. So I was really looking forward to getting up today, despite the bloody rain that's just kicking in. After taking delivery of the beige tent, its new acquisition, the beige outhouse, has acquired a beige water tank. I had to be bright-eyed, bushy-tailed up for the delivery at 8 o'clock in the morning on the pad, which I thought was going to be for a tank that was half the height and twice the diameter. So yeah, I made a lovely pad for it. After putting that one there, I was planning to use the $138 tension wrench to adjust one nut. And I will get around to that. However, those of you familiar with the channel may have been quick enough to pick out that the motorcycle is actually tied to the Melaleuca alternifolia trunks. And there's a reason for that. And there's a hole, a ding, a big one. And there's a reason for that. Because this tarpaulin is actually on upside down, inverted to the orientation that I put it on yesterday afternoon. This would be up at that end of the bike, right? That there was up there. So the tarpaulin's on upside down. Oops. Now you can actually tell by the hem if you get seriously observant. The reason it's like this is I came out last night, maybe 7:30, 8 o'clock-ish, to get some firewood. There had been a fair bit of strong windiness in the clearing, but you know, I had lumps of weighty things atop anything which might be likely to be blown around in a dangerous or destructive fashion in a strong wind gust, so I wasn't too worried. But when I came out to get some firewood, I discovered that global warming's highly augmented extra strength wind gusts had caught sufficient of the tarpaulin to have blown the bike up and over the centre of gravity and thrust it down into there. And when it did that, bad things happened. I was expecting damage to the wing mirror, but no, not so. I apologise for not commencing the video earlier on in this proceeding. But yeah, look at the piece of cast aluminium that the headlight mounts onto. Here are the three ends that the headlight mounting bracket goes to. Just there's a bit of abrasion through the blue tarpaulin that's got the ding in it. So this headlight has fetched up against this. I think that might be it there. Can we see that bit of a ding mark? Maybe not, but anyway, somewhere along here, wallop. Oh, and not only, but also, regardez-vous the end of me blinker stalks. So, 2,300 kilometres, haven't fallen off it while riding it, apart from once coming around that last corner there at 0 miles an hour and trying to be a smart ass with my feet on the foot pegs, and I did fall off it there once. But yeah, nearly 2,400 kilometres and I hadn't scratched it. And bloody global warming's extra high strength wind gust attacked me motorbike and broke the headlight mounting and the front blinkers. So now I'm coming up with a fix. While I wait to see how much it's going to cost and how long I've got to wait for some new Hong Kongium to show up. And look, see, it's bloody scratched the shite out of the mud guard with the sharp dingle dangle. And while we're on the subject of whinging about motorcycles, look at the colour of the orange on that sticker and look at the colour of the yellow on that one, because apparently sufficient sun comes through these blue ultraviolet resistant tarpaulins to fade the sticker on your motorbike's shock absorber. However, we are being a little bit methodical. Do you see I've actually tagged and labelled and numbered all of these plugs so I can actually have some hope of putting it back together? I was going to take the headlight off, but it turns out that that plug there is not actually screwed into anything. It was glued on. It's just a weather seal. And I don't think I want to buggerise around with taking the headlight entirely to pieces. I think I'm going to work here in the field, and I'm going to use, well, at the moment, I'm boxing a bit clever again. Because I'm going to be gluing aluminium, seemed to me it might be a good idea if I got some aluminium, cast aluminium, just like this is cast aluminium, made from high tensile aluminium power lines, and I broke it with a hammer. And having broke it with a hammer on a rock, in order to get myself a surface of freshly fractured aluminium, cast aluminium, probably a different alloy and different temperature and all that, but it's still cast aluminium. What we have there is super glued aluminium casting, and it's up against epoxy aluminium repaired casting. I'm not quite certain, but I think I'm going to go with the araldite epoxy rather than the super glue. But give it another half an hour or so, and I'm going to put these in the vise and pull on them and see which lets go the firstiest. And I'll use a scale to do a measurement. And then, having glued the bits together and waiting for that glue to go off rather than trust the glue, the plan is going to be just like when that broke, cracking off about a third of the thread. First I glued the missing segment back in, and then I used nylon thread and I served it, just like a line runner on a fishing rod. And then I soaked Bondic into this one and then cured the Bondic. I think I'm probably going to use epoxy. Well, I might use Bondic to cure the serving to go around the glued joint. So the intention is to glue each end back, let the glue line set, and then serve it with nylon thread on each repaired joint, and then, yeah, either epoxy or Bondic over the top of the serving. And yeah, that should perhaps possibly suffice. I don't know. We will see. And as with a lot of these things, you can do the job or you can make the video. This is the video, and I didn't show any of the job actually happening. After I've done the job, I'll make another video showing how it went. But at the moment, I sort of kind of need to concentrate on getting it done, because you can't ride a bloody motorbike if you haven't got a front headlight and you haven't got front blinkers, and you certainly can't ride it while they're wobbling all over the place and scratching the shit out of the front mudguard. So, such is life. Did I ever tell you how much I hate global warming? Who knew that a motorcycle has to be bloody well tied to the ground just as if it was an ultralight to avoid being blown over in the wind? It never occurred to me. I suppose if I didn't have the tarpaulin on, if I was prepared to let it just get rained on, that wouldn't have happened. But in all honesty, this is just part of the learning curve when you're 63 years old and you've owned a motorbike for a year. There's all sorts of traps for beginners that I was blissfully unaware of. Now I know I've got to come up with some way of tying my motorbike down. Reason it's here between the tea trees is to give it some shade from the leaves on the tea trees. Lessen the ultraviolet burden on the tarpaulin, make it last longer. And we're pretty close to abundant supplies of water, so if it catches fire during charging, I can conceivably get the battery out of the bike and into the water before too much damage is done. And if I can't do that, well, the bike burns to the ground on a patch of dirt. I've got plenty of tea trees, so I thought there was sufficient method in the madness of having the bike here. It just never occurred to me that I have to put bloody wing tie downs on it just as if it was an ultralight. I suppose that serves me right for treating it mentally as if it's an ultralight. I wouldn't take it out flying on a day like today because it might get rained on. Worry about excessive wind because the aerodynamic buffet from B double coming the other way with 40 kilometres an hour of wind up its arse. It's a considerable buffet. But anyway, yeah, I think that's moderately funny, really, all things considered. Nearly 2,400 kilometres and I haven't fallen off it, so while I had the bloody thing parked and under a tarpaulin, the wind picked it up and threw it against a tree for me. Warbles on a lot to YouTube. Karma comes in interesting ways. Ciao.